Hello everyone and welcome back to another 3rd edition Batman Miniature Game Battle Report. Thank you for the support on the first battle report that was done in a while, I mean. And you did want more Batman, you wanted me to persist with hosting these, despite the issues ongoing with Night Models, like for instance opening for pre-orders for a new miniature with a stated release date of May 25th when you know you're not going to ship on May 25th because the lockdown is still in effect. So why pre-order? I can't anymore. It's just, they've gone from being lovingly incompetent to being like proactively, aggressively idiotic, and I just don't understand. Anyway, we're here for another one because the game is still fun to play despite all that, and it's going to be Batman up against Soldiers of Fortune. So we'll go over the Batman crew real quick because it is the winner staying on from actually no, it wasn't winner, sorry, it was a draw last time. Either way, this is the same crew as last time, the Batman crew, being led by the Dark Knight Returns Batman, but he has taken his 35 rep upgrade for the Power Armor, so it's the Power Armor one that will be on the table first of all. Then we have the new Red Hood, we have Harvey Bullock, Officer Merkel, JCPD Detective, and Lady with a Taser. Same objective deck setup as last time as well for this crew. And here we have the Soldiers of Fortune being led by Bane the Bat, the very impressive model, absolute monster on the field. His stats are ridiculous. I guess Batman in this set of events, he's old, he's over the hill, so Bane's like, I'm just going to take over. So that's what he's going to try and do, being led by Bane the Bat. And then we also have Deadshot as a free agent at the back there. And then we have the Sharpshooter. Now, this Bane does not have Elite Boss Soldier of Fortune like normal Bane, the 2nd edition Batbox Bane, so you can only take one of his troops from that. Then we also have the Militia Brute and the Lieutenant from the Militia Batbox, because again, Soldiers of Fortune is a combination of Militia and Bane. Unfortunately, we don't have a custom objective deck, so it'll just be neutral, with the exception that Bane's card is, or Bane the Bat's card is in there for sure. I don't know if Deadshot says, we'll have to see, although obviously it's luck of the draw what objective cards you get. So, Soldiers of Fortune, sadly with a neutral deck, but very interested how this gentleman is going to feel on the field, because I think he's going to be an absolute monster, but we'll see. So once again, we've got a selected deployment type, and we are also going to run an event criteria like last time. We had Gotham on fire, so we'll see what we get. Start with the deployment type. Are you kidding? We're not doing the line down the middle. Okay, that's fine. What is this one called? This is Duel. Place an event marker on the map as shown. Okay, so there's a marker just outside of 12. With the free models with the free agent rank must be deployed completely within 4 inches of that marker. Only the models with the free agent rank can move within 4 of the marker. That's okay. Well, there is a free agent on each side. Red Hood is a free agent, and Deadshot is a free agent. Deadshot obviously has the advantage if he's the only one allowed in that area, because nobody can get close enough to take him out. That seems like a slight unfair advantage, but hey, that's the luck of the draw, I guess. Okay, we'll do Duel. And the criteria? Suspect exhaustion. When a model places a suspect marker and there's already 3 or more in play, so it doesn't say allied, just in general 3 or more, that model suffers the slow 2 effect. Which I think is just 2 inches off of movement, but I'll double check that. Okay, so dual setup, suspect exhaustion. We'll be back at deployment. So we're all set up at deployment. It will be Batman crew going first in battle round 1. So each deployment zone is 12 by 12 with a line. And then for the event, for Duel, the marker is placed, and then free agents for side have to be placed wholly within force, so they can actually be outside of deployment, presumably, that's what that means. So Red Hood is there. Harvey Bullock has hidden, so he can be deployed as long as he can't be seen more than 12 away, so he's hidden behind that dumpster there. Deadshot is right there, and presumably because of the way it's worded, only free agents can move within 4 of both those markers, and presumably it's worded like that because at deployment, you have to be able to deploy your crew next to the marker you're not supposed to be within 4 of unless you're a free agent, because otherwise you've got this 4-inch bubble of a 12 by 12 that you can't touch, so the other models would have to be like in an L shape to avoid it, and then they couldn't move through it, they'd have to move around it, which is dumb. So even if that's not how you're supposed to play it or interpret that wording, as long as once Bane and the Lieutenant and the Brute are like at least 4 inches away from this marker, then they're adhering to the rules. That's how we're playing it. Presumably that's how you're meant to. Same for the Batman crew. There's no cards being played at the start, so we're just jumping into the first activation for Batman. So although he didn't end up moving much, Harvey Bullock was the first to get the game started. He activated with Audacity and he placed a suspect marker for his first activation, and thanks to the detective role he can do it within line of sight 3 inches. It doesn't have to be in base contact with him. So he placed it there and it has been placed as a snitch. So it's a snitch, but it's still a suspect marker. It cannot be revealed or removed this round. However, if an enemy gets within 4 of it, if no enemy gets within 4 of it, sorry, you score the card. It is technically feasible that a model will be able to get within 4, for instance, if they take that sewer grating there, but it would obviously put them in massive peril because of the entire crew being here waiting to punch them. But that's in play till the end of the turn, so we'll see what happens. Oh, sorry, and also, forgot, Harvey then slightly moved just to be even further obscured by the bin there in case Deadshot decides to take a shot at him. So first up for Soldiers of Fortune was the Sharpshooter, who has a scope and has an aim sniper rifle, and he's standing on top of that caravan there so he can pretty much see down the table. The scope lets him see at any distance other than line of sight blocking, and granted this table is a bit sparse because it was used for Crisis Protocol prior, but he can see down the field, so he took a shot all the way down the table at JCPD Detective. However, you might have saw the roll there, normal die plus strength die. It was Snake Eyes, so he whiffed, and it has reload, so he cannot fire it next turn. But he's in a prime position to get a good shot at pretty much anyone well, not next turn, but the turn after. So JCPD Detective, who narrowly missed a sniper bullet to the head that very well could have killed him, it needed a 2+ on the strength die and a 3+ on the other, and it would have done 8 blood damage. So consider himself lucky. He activated with Audacity and a free manipulate because he was within 8 of Batman. He moved his 10 inches over to where you can see him, and he placed his suspect marker and has also placed it as a snitch. Now, as far as the rules are understood regarding playing cards in Phase 3, which this is a Phase 3 card, during a model's activation you can only play 1 objective card as an objective and 1 as a resource. The only other stipulation in the rulebook, just double checked, is that you can never play 2 cards with the same name simultaneously. Now, because this is 2 different activations, Bullock played 1 and now the detective is playing 1, presumably that is allowed, because that means 2 snitches are in play, 6 victory points on the table. That is tough. That's just luck of the draw from the objective decks. I think that's played correctly. If it isn't, let me know, but that's how it's being played here, and he did nothing else, so he's taking cover in the ruin here and guarding his snitch. Back over to Bane. So the Militia Brute was up next, and in old money, if you like, as in his 2nd edition card, he was only movement 1, which translates into 6 inches in this edition, and he has to make sure he ends more than 4 away from the free agent thing, so that severely limited what he could do. He activated with Audacity, but it didn't really matter much because he was within Bane's distance anyway. So he moved his 6 away from the marker over here, and then placed a suspect marker right smack dab there, and that is all he could do. So the man himself, Batman, activated next, and first of all he used one of his power tokens, because remember in the power armor he can have 3 tokens that he can spend to do various buffs. He spent 1 for an additional 4 inches of movement, although really it's only at 2 inches, because wearing the power armor itself takes away 2 inches. So that gives him 10 in total. So he activated with Audacity, just moved forward. Unfortunately he is too close to the various markers there to place another one. Plus if he did place another one, there's already 3 in place, so the suspect exhaustion is kicked in. If anyone else wants to place a suspect marker, they'll get slow 2. Bane the Bat activated with Audacity. Forgot to mention when going over the crew setups, I think, that via his I Will Break You role he has picked Close Combat Master, so he really is a beast and is to be avoided. He moved 8 inches, first of all, as a move action. Then as a tactical action, he revealed his own suspect marker by playing Valuable Commodity. So this is a long text, but it's essentially just you reveal one of your own suspect markers and it becomes loot. You pick up the loot. If you get KO'd, you drop the loot. It can be picked up by other people. If by the end of the game you're holding the loot, still one of your miniatures is holding the loot, you score this card. So it's a long con 1, but at the end of the game that could be 3 victory points, and it is exceptionally unlikely that Bane the Bat, especially given there's 1 lethal gun on the other team, that he's going to go down because he has desensitized, so even if he gets full KO damage it then just turns into blood damage after that, so he's essentially got 20 HP, or 19, so it's very very likely that it's going to stay in play and score at the end of the game. Got 2 quick activations for you next. The officer lady with the taser did not have Audacity, had a free manipulate, but again couldn't quite space correctly to get away from the markers that were there, so she just moved next to Batman, ended her turn. Then the lieutenant with Audacity for Soldiers of Fortune activated, did a move and placed a suspect marker. He doesn't get slow 2 because Bane the Bat turning that counter into loot revealed it, so it gets removed. So it was back to only having 2 on the table. That is now 3 on the table again, so going forward, anyone else placing will get slow 2. So back round to Batman's crew. Officer Merkel, let his name be written in history, activated without audacity, and now Batman's out of range. So he just did a movement action next to the sewer grating right there. So now it comes down to jumping back over to Deadshot for Bane's crew, and then it's back over to Red Hood to end the turn. So for the world's most deadly assassin, Sniper, even though this version doesn't have a sniper, but whatever, Deadshot activated and with audacity. So first of all, he did his special action to do rapid fire, so he gains +1 attack die. However, he then did a move action. Moving and shooting means you lose 2, so that's the strength die plus 1 other. And he moved into position here and then did a shooting action on Bullock over there, who was partially obscured. However, 2 shots got through, so that did... His gun is weird, it does 2 blood, 1 stun per bullet. So that is 4 blood, 2 stun in total to Bullock. And didn't take him down though, he's got 6 health, so he has 2 left. And no card scored from doing that, but obviously he's hurting. What is it with Bullock always getting shot? Anyway, over to Red Hood to end the turn. So to end off activations for Battle Round 1, Red Hood activated with audacity, but all he did was a movement action. He's fast, he moves 12 plus 1 for Acrobat, I believe. Is he acrobatic? Yes, he is. So he moved behind this dumpster here just to block line of sight, or at least get cover. And that was it. He could have placed a suspect marker, but again, if he did, he would have been slow too, and he likes to be fast. So, not doing that, and that does take us to the recap for Battle Round 1. So at the close of Battle Round 1, Harvey has healed 1 of his 2 stun damage, but obviously he's still bleeding profusely from bullet wounds from Deadshot. And in terms of victory points scored, the loot is obviously still in play on Bane. However, both snitches have scored, at least if this was done correctly, so that is 6 victory points on the boards for Batman. The snitches then get removed, I believe, because the cards have been scored and their criteria is gone. That's the way we're doing it. I remember this debate coming up in a previous battle report about whether or not scored suspect markers that are of a special type, such as the Stinky Fish for Joker, do they get removed after the scoring condition is gone because the card is gone, so they can't score anymore? There was no consensus because the rules are not clear. The way we're playing it here is they have scored, they are gone. So that means 2 more suspect markers can be played before the slow effect is back. And as we go into turn 2, well, it is the Bane crew, sorry, old habits, the Soldiers of Fortune crew going first. So to get Battle Round 2 started, it was Bane the Bat. Now, Bane the Bat has a role called Batman Lives, which does a few different things. The first of which that's relevant here is that when he begins his activation, if no one can draw a direct line of sight, he gets a free movement action. It doesn't just say, it's not like sneaking where you get 2 inches at the end of a turn, it's just a free movement action. So he moved and then moved to get into base to base with Bullock, he had audacity, and decided to pummel him to death. So he has base 6 attacks, that's 7 with the strength die, which is more dice than the 3rd edition comes with, for the record. Close Combat Master via I Will Break You means he was re-rolling all the normal dice as well. He did actually still whiff quite badly despite that. He got enough through to do 6 stun, which is more than enough to knock out Bullock though, and that in turn also triggered Dirty Job. So it's only 1 victory point, but it's making enemy model KO or a casualty. He made him KO. Now, another part of the Batman Lives rule is that if Bane is in base to base with a knocked out miniature, he can spend a special action to just kill it. But it does specify if they are of the affiliation Batman, he can't do it. So Bullock is that affiliation, so that's why he's not dead. Also, he did use 1 of his Venom doses, which is not a special action, he can just do it. And it works basically similar to 2nd edition. +1 strength, which puts him at 2+ strength, and lets him get 2 free efforts, so in other words, he can throw in 2 extra defense or attack dice. He did not do it here because he didn't think he needed it for Bullock. And the other thing is invulnerability 2, because of his Venom Master rule, or whatever it's called. So first 2 bits of damage he's getting this turn are not going to affect him. So against his better judgment, Batman activated and he decided to go try and save Harvey with audacity. He used his special action to use the Batclaw because otherwise he couldn't cover enough distance to get into base to base with Bane the Bat. He also used another of his power counters to make it that you needed 2 successful blocks to block a single successful hit from him. So he was unleashing, I think, 5 attacks if you include the strength die against Bane. Bane being, no, not being large, wearing light armor meant that 1 die was dropped. However, 6 stun did get through, but then Invulnerability 2 took 2 away from that, plus Bane is large, so that takes another stun away from it. So it turned 6 stun into 3, but that's okay because that was enough to trigger Jason Todd's unique objective card, even though Jason himself isn't the one scoring it. Inflict at least 3 hits with a weapon that inflicts stun type damage against an enemy model with the highest reputation. So he got that many attacks through, and well, it has a secondary criteria where if Joker's in the game it has to be Joker, but Joker's not here, so Bane is very much the highest reputation cost on the enemy team, so that scores, because it doesn't say it needs to be Jason that does it, weirdly. You'd think it would. Actually, I wonder if there's a rule where it specifies if it's a named thing, the named person has to do it. I don't think there is. If there is, point it out, and that was done wrong if that isn't the case. Is the case rather, but I don't. In the description of how it's scored, it does not specify that Jason has to land at least 3 hits that inflict stun damage. So, I don't know. Either way, Bane is taking that damage. It's not like it's going to take him down, but hey, some damage got done and potentially a card got scored. So next up was Deadshot. He activated with Audacity, did a move action, and then for his tactical action, rather than shoot Batman or the downed Harvey Bullock, he just did a manipulate and placed a suspect marker right at the back there, well away from deployment for and also his token, etc. And that's all he did. Back over to Batman's crew. Red Hood activated with Audacity, so he did his 13 inches, 12 plus 1 from Acrobat movement to get up here right into the Lieutenant's face. I don't think we covered last time, but this Red Hood has 2 options for attacking. He has the Crowbar, which is like heavy, reach, devastating, blunt 2, but it does KO damage. Then he has a Katana, which is heavy, sharp and handy, so it's re-rolling, misses, and the strength die. And he used the Katana and did an amazing 8 blood damage through to the Lieutenant. He is just straight up dead. So he is gone, and that in turn has also scored They Must Know Pain for 1 victory point, inflict at least 6 damage of any type in a single melee attack. Scored and done. The Batman crew is pulling ahead with victory points. The Cybernetic Brute activated next for Soldiers of Fortune. Now, because he has to avoid a 4-inch bubble around this because of the dual setup for the objective, he had to go round with his bad movement, so he couldn't just beeline straight for Red Hood. So he did have Audacity, he moved there, and because of his base size that is just outside 4, so he placed another suspect marker, and that does bring the total number of suspect markers on the field back up to 3. The Man with the Plan, Officer Merkel, activated without Audacity, so he stayed still and just did a shooting action with his non-lethal riot shotgun into Bane in the back, got 2 hits through, which is actually kind of surprising. They technically did 4 stun, however, because he's large, he takes 1 less stun damage, so that gets reduced down to 3, which puts him at 6 stun out of his 9 willpower. But again, because of desensitized, he can't be knocked out. So now, also just the next activation, just to cover it real quick because it was real simple. Because he can't fire, the sniper just retreated a little bit onto the caravan to get away from Red Hood. That's literally it. So now it's just over to the lady with the taser and the JCPD detective to end off battle round 2. So to cover those last 2 activations, the JCPD detective, he didn't have Audacity, so he just did a move action. He hopped the wall and went forwards his 10 inches. The lady with the taser did have Audacity. She moved into base to base with the Cybernetic Brute. She shocked him with her taser, did 4 stun, however he is also large, so it gets reduced down to 3. And he has 2 more willpower left. He's actually kind of easy to take down if you go after willpower. And that does take us to the end of the round, so let's see if anything scores. So we're at the halfway point, we're at the end of battle round 2 going into turn 3, and Harvey Bullock has not woken up, so he is staying knocked out in the next battle round. In terms of victory points being scored via objectives, Bane's crew, the Soldiers of Fortune, have played Stick to the Plan in the end phase. For 2, you must have more suspect markers in play than your opponent, 3 versus 0, so it has scored, that goes in the pile, and now we're moving on to battle round 3. So at the start of battle round 3, it will be Batman's crew going first in the penultimate turn, and we have some cards being played in the Raise the Plan phase. Snap, actually. It's Die Hard for Batman's crew. Choose one of your models that's not the boss. If that model's not KO'd or removed this turn, score the objective. So, actually, I keep forgetting, is this the... Yeah, it's this turn, because of the thing there. So for this one, it is Red Hood, and that's now in play. But then also Snap, as I said, Bane's crew are also playing Die Hard, and this is being associated with Deadshot. So these cards have until the end of the turn to be avoided by killing either Red Hood or Deadshot, otherwise they score. And remember, the loot card is still in play on Bane as well. So the first proper activation of Battle Round 3 was Red Hood, and because this is only 2 inches, he hopped up onto it and then moved his full movement. He activated with Audacity to attack the sniper before the sniper could get a chance to attack. He efforted once to add an attack die. The sniper efforted 3 times the maximum amount to reduce attack dice. All said and done, however, 3 attacks got through with the katana for 6 blood. He has been removed, and that in turn also scored Dirty Job for 1 victory point, making any model KO or a casualty. It was made a casualty. So he does have 1 stun on him, but Red Hood got the job done, and it's very unlikely he's going to go down unless Deadshot gets very lucky. So Deadshot was next up with Audacity. He activated Rapid Fire and fired his pistols into Batman, who has medium armor, so you lose 2 dice on that alone. But he did manage to do 2 hits, so that's 2 blood, 2 stun, which is enough to blow off the power armor on Batman. So he is down to his normal self, perhaps prepared for Bane to punch him a lot. So the next activation was the Lady Cop with the taser. She tased the Cybernetic Brute for, 6, but down to 5, which is more than enough to knock him out. She had Audacity, which hasn't been flipped. She spent her special action to arrest a model, get them off the streets. That has been scored. Just a random aside, but I was rereading Batman Eternal. That picture is from Batman Eternal. Random fact. So that is the Cybernetic Brute off the table. Is just Bane and Deadshot left on the table, and they're way behind with victory points. But let's see what happens anyway. Well, with no one else to activate, it was obviously Bane the Bat's turn to end this turn for Soldiers of Fortune. And he used Venom again, and he unloaded on Frank Miller Batman a ridiculous number of attacks. Bane is a monster. You're not miscounting. He did 10 stun damage and has just knocked Batman out in 1 melee attack. He then did a movement action to get base to base with Officer Merkel, and also, pardon me for stretching, scored Dirty Job just for 1 victory point, making enemy model KO, which he did. He scored, and he's now also stopped Merkel being able to fire his gun. So there is that. Now it is over to Merkel, the detective, and that's it. Yes, that's it. So they get to go, and that's the end of the penultimate turn after that. So just going to quickly cover the last 2 activations for Batman's crew in the penultimate turn. Merkel, because he couldn't fire his gun, just tried, and he didn't have Audacity, tried to punch Bane futilely, just like sucker punched him in the stomach, and Bane just stared at him. The GCPD detective activated with Audacity, did a move action, and then placed and played the last one in the deck. It's become a snitch, and there's no one that's going to get near it because there's no enemies left to go, so that's a guaranteed score when we go into the cleanup phase in a second. So to go over what happened, Batman and Bullock have now both woken up, so they're just knocked down, not knocked out, so they will get an activation in the final turn if that matters. In terms of it, in the end of the turn, Dirty Job has been scored by Bane, that's the only one. And then over to the other side, Batman has also scored Dirty Job because Red Hood survived as well. And of course that snitch marker right there did get scored. Oh, totally forgot to mention, the detective is afflicted with slow 2 because he placed a 4th marker. Doesn't really matter. But we are going to play the final turn, even though it's insurmountable to catch up with victory points wise now. But maybe Bane will get to have one last laugh. Let's see. So as we start Battle Round 4, it will be Batman's crew getting first activation, and there are no objective cards being played in the race plan phase. We're jumping straight into the activations themselves. So the first activation was Batman. He stood up, which means he's suffering impaired movement. However, for a special action he used his Batclaw to kind of counteract that with 6 extra inches. He went behind Deadshot and then used a Manipulate to reveal the suspect marker there, which triggered Wrong Place Kid, which is Harvey Bullock's objective card. Reveal an enemy suspect marker at least 6 inches away from any of your models with the cop trait, with the exception of the model revealing the marker. Doesn't matter, Batman isn't a cop. So he revealed it, there's no cops within 6, so it has been scored for another 3. Great luck with the draws on the objective deck, combined with just the markers themselves. That's another 3 in the bag. So Bane was up next, and he just went for the kill. He used his once per game weapon, which is the bat signal. He just picks it up and bashes someone to death with it. It's a double bleed weapon. And unfortunately, Officer Merkel was the recipient of 8 blood damage, murderizing Merkel. He is down, which also triggered, for Soldiers of Fortune, They Must Know Pain, which is another 1 point in the bag for them. Then Bane just did a movement action to where you can see him so that there's not as many lines of sight. The cop with the taser moved ever so slightly. She has audacity. Then she did a reveal on the enemy suspect marker that was there and triggered comb through everything. So that is 2 more victory points, and then you draw 2 cards, discard 1 for a new objective card for your hand. So Deadshot activated next, and this is actually going to be the last activation of the game because there is no others that can possibly score any cards for the Batman crew, because this is the last Soldier of Fortune regardless. He turned on the spot, fired his last rounds of his assault rifle into Batman, whiffed pretty badly, only got 1 through for 2 blood, 1 stun. That is actually enough to re-knock him out, so Batman is knocked out, but no cards to score there, so that does take us to the end of the game. So in more ways than one, this match was an absolute slaughter. So we already know who wins. Look how thick this victory pile is. So let's just count this up real quick. This is Bane's side, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 7 points. And then the Batman crew, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Absolute massacre. And I don't even think that was down to necessarily being a neutral deck. It's just these cards they appeared at the right time to make them very, very easy to score. Even if you discount like the snitch thing being done incorrectly, even if you took away 4 of these cards, all worth 3, it's still not enough for Soldiers of Fortune to catch up. Wow. Oh, apologies, one final correction. Of course, Bane did end with the loot card in his possession, so actually they scored 10. Because they had 7, right? So that's another 3. So not quite as embarrassing, only a 14-point difference. Whatever. So that was pretty fun. Bane the Bat is just an unstoppable monster, and he's brilliant. Unfortunately, it does take a turn to get him into the action. I wonder how things would have went if he'd taken a Sword Grating turn 1 to get right in the back line. He would have went down eventually, but he could have done some real damage first. He's very fun though, he's an absolute monster. Didn't help if there was more kill cards, I think, in the deck, or you know, if there was a actual Soldiers of Fortune objective deck, that could make a big difference as well, but we have to make do with what we have for now. Gotta just wait patiently while Night Models continue to release new versions of Batman and Joker over and over every month. Was that better? That sounded a little bit better. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please do continue to show your support on these if you wish to see more in the future. Get more models on the table as soon as possible. I did see there was one request, I think on the most recent posted, that you want to see more 2nd edition models just to see how they fare in 3rd edition because they don't need upgraded cards. It's still going to come down to objective decks being missing, but can make that happen. Got a bunch of 2nd edition miniatures that haven't played in 3rd yet, so try and make that happen as well going forwards. This list for Batman's crew will get retired for a little bit as well, I think. 1 draw and 1 win. Not too bad. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe, and I will see you next time. Ta-ta for now.